This is a quick example to illustrate the comparison of objects in Java, drawing on some code that is to be found in Chapter 5. This is the Morse code app. It's a rather clever app. What you do is when you run it, you can click quickly with the mouse and you'll see a dot. If you press the mouse and release it sometime later, you'll see a dash. So you can type out the Morse code this way. The way that works is on mouse pressed, we call a system method called current time milliseconds, turn time in milliseconds, and that returns a double representing the current time, and we store that in press time, which is a double instance variable defined right here. And when we release the mouse, we compute the current time, again by a call to this method, subtract the press time, and if that's greater than a certain threshold, which is a constant defined up here, 200, then that's when we print the dash. On the other hand, if it's any time less than or equal to this amount, then we'll put in a dot. So that's how it works. What I propose to do is to detect if the user has put in SOS, so that's the dot, 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 dash, dash, dash. So naively, one would think that if we just check to see if the current code is equal to this, remember the code always begins with that. The current code starts with that. So dot, 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 dash, dash, dash. What I want to do is display on the screen that this is SOS. Well, in order to do that, I need an instance variable for that text display. Let's call it SOS display. And we will define it in the begin method. Let's start it as an empty string so you don't see it. Put it at x position 30, y position 50. So all I want to do for the SOS display is simply say SOS. SOS display dot set text, of course. So we run this and it won't work. And I don't see SOS being displayed, so obviously this test failed, even though this string is exactly what I'm testing for. The reason is that current code is an object. It's a string object, string with a capital S right here, declared over there. And strings are objects, and double equals does not work in general for objects. It tests to see if two objects are identical, but it doesn't test to see if they have the same value. In order to test to see if two strings have the same value, we need the equals method. So I need to call this method. It gives me a Boolean value, and it tests to see if these two strings are equal. So let's see if that works. Dot, 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 dash, dash, dash. SOS pops up. So that's great. So that's what I wanted it to do. Of course, actually, it would be nice if we detected to see if the SOS came up later, and it just comes up and stays there. So there is a way to do that, actually. If you look at the string API, there it is, the string API, there is a method called endsWith, which tests to see if the string ends with a certain suffix. So instead of this, I could say ends with, and I don't need this because I'm just looking for that end of the string being this dot. So if I start out with something other than the SOS like that, and then put in the dot, 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 dash, 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 the SOS comes up. Now, it would be sort of nice if the SOS disappeared and then came up every time it was recognized. That's something we can do easily enough with an else. Just put in the empty string. So now every time we see an SOS, it will be detected. When the SOS hasn't been just typed in, that will go away. As was to be shown. The main point is that if you want to compare two objects, you use an equals method. The double equals operator works fine for primitive type variables, but not for objects.